Good morning, everybody who's joined us. Thank you all for joining in on this really quite chilly day in Johannesburg and apparently in Cape Town as well. I'm not sure. Often we have people from international areas as well, so that would be great if we do. But a really, really warm welcome to all of you. I think the topic that Samu is going to talk about today for our Women of Africa series is an extremely important topic. And I think we need to be considering this aspect while we are in this bizarre situation that we are in terms of women empowerment and what we actually can be doing to keep moving forward as we have gone a bit back. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker today. We are so privileged that she has taken the time out of her busy schedule to come and talk to us, share her thoughts and insights. Samu Ncube is the CEO of Aziza Global. She's a human capital development consultant and has over 23 years experience with both corporate and entrepreneurial environments. She's had exposure to various international organizations, their cultures, and she has a wide and diverse network of professionals that has helped her work with all these different types of organizations, both globally and internationally. Her diverse career skills include skills development, human capital development, which is something that we maybe don't realize how important human capital development really is. Samu has her MBA degree from Mill Park Business School, and we are very proud of that. And she has a Bachelor of Commerce with a double major in marketing and business management from Oxford Brookes University in United Kingdom. And what makes her so ideal for this talk is that her dissertation topic for her MBA focused on the empowerment of women in South African private sectors, with a particular focus on the career advancement of women and their representation in middle, senior, and executive roles, which is still a very, very important discussion and conversation and area we need to be focusing on. So she is ideally placed to give her insights today, and we are really looking forward to that. Please remember, we have got questions that you can ask and comments. So Samu is going to give her insights, tell us a few thoughts and strategies, and then we will get together and have a few questions and discussion around that. So thank you, Samu. We're really looking forward to this, and enjoy it, everybody.
Thank you so much, Jane, and good morning, everybody. From a very cold Johannesburg. I'm so happy to be here to be talking about women empowerment. We know that women empowerment is a global phenomenon. We have been having this conversation for a very long time. And when we look at South Africa in particular, we go back 64 years ago when the women marched to the union buildings, demanding a fair and equal society against sexism, against racism. So we have been having this conversation for a very, very long time. Women are inherently born leaders as well. So if you look at us as women, we are good at managing. Can you move on to the next slide, please? The next slide, thank you. Okay, so when we look at women, we look at women empowerment in terms of economic empowerment of women, really just strengthening the economic and political social positions of women, especially now in the 21st century. The strengthening of women's economic positions is very, very important in terms of growth and development, as well as in business and productivity. If you look at most of organizations that have women in senior management roles, most of those most of those organizations are very, very productive. Now, if we look at ourselves as women, if we go back in terms of women, we are inherently born leaders. We are good at managing households, so that requires really unique skill sets in terms of budgeting, finance, human resources, negotiation, and so forth. There's evidence also when I was doing my MBA, there was evidence that studies that were done by McKinsey and various researchers that show that women who are in senior management positions, those organizations are more productive than organizations that don't. So essentially, when we empower women, we're looking at really just building strong economies. We're looking at establishing more stable and just societies, as well as improving the quality of life for families and communities, boosting competitiveness and profitability. This is the conversation that we need to have, especially as the business community and the private sector. The government has put in place various programs, various platforms for us to be able to utilize those kind of programs in terms of moving women forward. But as a matter of fact, especially when you look at South Africa in particular, and you look at the global village in general, women are not being escalated or advanced, as expected. So that is the conversation that we need to have. If you look at the figures in terms of the Employment Equity Act, we are still far behind as South Africa in terms of putting women in senior management roles. And we're not talking in terms of Black women, white women, it's just women in general. Women need to be escalated to senior management roles so that we also at least add, we have an impact on boosting competitiveness in the industry. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so when we then start looking at women as decision makers, we have to understand that building women's capacity towards decision making leads to transformative action. Now, when we talk about transformative action, we're essentially talking about women's control or influence in terms of the vast majority of their buying decisions. Transformative action would then make sure that women make those kind of decisions that increase productivity in the organization. As well as that, more women in decision-making positions can provide broader insight in terms of the economic behavior and consumer choices. Businesses that recognize that value of having a diverse talent pool in senior management outperform those who do not have women in senior management positions. Now, when we look at the role of women in terms of business, we tend to overlook the contribution that women make in the organization. We have a question here. We have a question from Erica. Okay, I'll answer the questions at the end of the session. When we look at women in terms of their contribution in the excuse me, I'm losing a bit of connection here. Sorry.
Not to worry, Samu. We can see and hear you.
Can you see me? I'm losing connection here.
Not to worry, we can still see and hear you.
Okay. Okay, can you please move on to the next slide? Okay, so we come then to the obstacles in terms of the advancement of women. In terms of the advancement of women, we have a varying combination of factors. We have political factors, we've got social factors, we've got cultural factors. In terms of social factors, we all know that there is a perception that women are secondary to men. We look at the experiences that women face. There is the glass ceiling, the proverbial glass ceiling. There is the gentlemen's clubs. a lot of women that I have had interviews with, especially when I was doing my dissertation, explained to me that in terms of, progressing in a male-dominated environment, is very difficult for them. Even though when they're sitting in board meetings, they have to make sure that they research more than their male counterparts. So that becomes a problem and an issue in terms of them, progressing in a male-dominated environment. So those are the kind of conversations that we need to have. When we look at government programs that are there in terms of the challenges that women face when it comes to political, the programs are there, they're set, they're there for people to actually exploit them. But the conversation that we need to be having is, are they being channeled to women in terms of progression, in terms of their skills developments and so forth? You look at culture, we all come from different cultures. There's African culture, there's, people from various cultures. A woman is not supposed to have a voice in terms of leadership. We've fought for equality as women, but at the same time, our voices are not being heard. We're not saying that nothing is happening. We're not saying that there is no progress. There is progress, but it's very, very slow in terms of its implementation. The government in itself, there is a department that is in place for women, youth, and people with disabilities. Programs are put in place, but implementation is very slow. At the end of the day, when we look at employment equity figures, when companies submit their employment equity reports, still the workplace, senior management positions, boardrooms, and executives, they are dominated by males, especially. There's no women. Women are put there as simple tokens. We're just tokens to be said, okay, fine, there's women in senior management positions. But it is time for us to, as the private sector especially, to escalate women into capable women into senior management positions. For example, in South Africa alone, we've got 87% of women that are literate. I mean, that is a huge number. If we've got 87% of women who are literate, most of those with university degrees, with diplomas and so forth, why are we not having more women in senior management roles? So that is the conversation that we need to now have, even as women as ourselves. We need to actually come out and have that conversation to say, why are we not being escalated into senior management roles? That is really concerning, especially looking at this month, which is a month that is celebrating women. We have issues of, when you look at cultural issues, when you look at social issues, we've got issues of gender violence. More and more of us are being violated. More and more of us are not being heard. We're being violated by people that are close to us. More and more of us are being murdered. More and more of us are being overlooked for promotions, which is something really, really that is very disconcerting. So I would put a challenge to the private sector, especially, that it is time now to have succession plans for women. It is time now to start investing in women, especially when it comes to skills development. I will use myself as an example. I was 17 years old when I finished my matric. I then went and I stayed with an uncle, but I only had a matric certificate. From that point in time, my mother, may her soul rest in peace, was the biggest role model that I had. Can you please move on to the next slide? My mother was the biggest role model that I had. She encouraged me to study further. She told me that as long as you have an education, nobody can ever take that away from you. As a result, I put myself through school. I went to night school, and during the day I worked and I went to night school, up to this point where I now hold a master's degree and I'm soon going to be registering for a doctorate. I have invested in myself. I've invested in my education. So as women, we cannot also just wait for somebody to believe in us. We cannot just simply wait for somebody to advance us. We need to take that leap of faith. We need to start with ourselves and say, what am I going to do for myself? How am I going to advance myself in terms of, improving my skills? There is a lot of programs that the government has put in place. There's learnerships for women, for people that are employed. There's learnerships for people that are unemployed. But it is up to us to take that leap of faith to say, okay, now I'm going to develop myself. How am I going to do that? Mentoring and coaching. In a nutshell, as a woman, you would need to find and identify with somebody that can mentor you, somebody that can advance you. And as well as women, in terms of ourselves, we need to lift each other up. We need to have networks, different networks of women. I know there's this a simple thing where sometimes we don't even relate to each other as women, but that needs to change. We need to offer each other mentoring. We need to offer each other networks. We need to offer each other platforms where we can access different opportunities in terms of advancing ourselves. For example, not every woman is educated. Not every woman is literate, but definitely the inherent factor of leadership that a woman possesses automatically places us as women in an advantageous position. We need to now start having a conversation of how are we going to improve the lives, how are we going to lift the lives of those women in the rural areas that do not have access to what we have. We are living in a technological age, but there is other women out there that are lagging behind that do not have access to what we have. In terms of what my organization is doing in terms of skills development, we are busy putting together a series of programs, a series of proposals where we are going to be accessing, looking for funding to actually train women in terms of being entrepreneurs. There is no more jobs for everybody in South Africa, let alone women. So it is time now for us to pick up and become entrepreneurs so that we can create employment for each other and for ourselves. There's various skills that we can teach in terms of baking, in terms of jewelry making, in terms of dressmaking. Just bringing women together as communities. As communities of practice. Those are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. So what my organization is doing now, we've identified a set of women that have got the technical skill set of making jewelry. They've studied how to make jewelry. They make beautiful jewelry, but at the end of the day, they are failing to actually access local markets and international markets. So if anybody is listening out there and has access to funding, please, contact me. I have a set of 100 women that I need to put through a new venture creation course so that they can learn to actually prepare business plans. They could learn to, access tenders. They could learn to, market their businesses locally and internationally. In terms of economic empowerment as a private sector, we need to start looking at advancing capable women into senior management roles. Like I said, there's 87% of women that are actually literate, and more women are now getting qualifications in terms of degrees, doctorates, and so forth. I'm an example myself. When I finished my MBA, I thought that the MBA would actually open doors for me. I would get hired left, right, and center. But I got a really shock, a shock, because I couldn't even get employment. I couldn't get employment as educated as I was. This is what made me become an entrepreneur. Lucky enough, when I did my MBA at Mopac, one of the modules, the entrepreneurship modules, was very, very insightful. Taught us how to prepare business plans and so forth. I sat down and I prepared my own business plan. I prepared my business plan. I got funding for that business plan. I partnered with my brother, and we ran a cell phone store, which was very successful, by the way, because it was In 2015, it was selected as one of the most top performing stores in South Africa, and we actually had we're given a holiday, you know, to Hollywood and so forth. But just to show you that at the end of the day, we need to be responsible for our own. Platforms are there, but we need to access them. For those that can't access them, we need to join that conversation as women to say, okay, how are we going to help those that cannot access them? Private sector business needs to collaborate with government with regards to employment equity in terms of reporting and compliance. There have been a lot of threats that have been made by government in terms of, you know, companies that do not comply in terms of employment equity. They'll be given fines and so forth. People, we've heard those threats over and over again, but nothing is being done. It is not unusual to walk into an organization in the South African private sector and you find that that organization is dominated by only males in the senior management positions. Why? Because even though the government says that they're going to be fining companies that do not comply, nothing is being done. So private sector business needs to collaborate with government in terms of changing the narrative when it comes to empowering women, especially in senior management roles. And as well, you know, in the defense of society, a male-dominated society, we have the tendency to believe that women are secondary to men. Yet we are the strongest species. We are the most strongest people. We leave home, we go to work, we run our businesses, we come back home and we still run a household. Now, who can be stronger than a woman? So we need to have a conversation with business and government and whoever does not believe that a woman can successfully head an organization, to actually show them that we are capable. We're very, very capable. And then in terms of the government implement government and private sector programs that support women in business. At the moment, there is an organization that only gives funding to women. It's called the okay, I'll have to research that, but it's called the EMP. I think it's the EMP. It gives funding to women-owned businesses. There is a platform that the government has in terms of giving women giving funding to small businesses, but not in particular for women as well. But organizations themselves, they have corporate social investment initiatives, programs, budgets that are in place. Those are the conversations that we need to be having, where women are given lines of credit facilities, funding in terms of business. I myself have struggled in terms of actually trying to get my business off the ground, trying to get funding and so forth. As I've mentioned earlier, I'm looking for funding. I'm looking for funding to be able to train these women that are sitting, they know how to make jewelry, they make beautiful jewelry, but at the end of the day, they do not know how to market their products. They do not know how to get finance for their businesses. They do not know how to reach the global community in terms of businesses. In terms of succession planning, senior positions need to accommodate capable women. Private organizations, government is very good in terms of women empowerment. I mean, we see a lot of women in senior management positions. We have directors, we've got ministers, deputy ministers, and so forth. The government has it down to a pat. They are in full compliance. But when it comes to the private sector, we need to start looking at succession planning, having capable women in senior management positions. Should a man leave the position, then we have a woman to fill that position. Okay, can you move on to the next slide? Okay, now we look at a particular focus in terms of strategies on women empowerment. Like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our conversation, in terms of networking, we need to network. Some, I don't know if the organization is still existing, but I was part of an organization, South African Business Women. South African business women, where we used to come together as women, find strategies, look for solutions, workable solutions to existing problems, especially those that affect women. Let's normalize networking as women. Let's normalize coming together, giving each other access to business opportunities and so forth. Also balancing competing demands of work and family. As I mentioned earlier as well, being a woman, I think we have some superpowers somewhere, because we need to balance competing demands of work and family. I go to work, I run a business, I still come back home, and I have to make dinner for my kids. I've got to make sure that the household, everything is in place. So ask for help. You cannot do everything on your own. Just ask for help, ask somebody else to help you, a family member and so forth, so that you don't burn out. Then you need to have confidence in your abilities and resources. Like I mentioned earlier as well, nobody is coming to save us as women. If you have confidence in your abilities and resources, abilities simply means that the skills that you already have, you need to put your skills out there. You need to ensure that people see who you are. You need to remain teachable. During this lockdown, since we have been in lockdown for 5 months, I have learned 4 different set of skills that are actually adding value to my organization. I've actually now become a hot commodity in terms of my industry, in terms of skills development and so forth. Things that are self-taught, things that I have learned to do myself. So as a woman, we already know that we are secondary. We are considered secondary to the male species. We already know that for us to be actually recognized as people that can add value to anything in the business environment or in the workplace environment, we need to prove ourselves more than our male counterparts. So the confidence that you have in your abilities and resources will actually make sure that you stand a cut above. In terms of us leaving our comfort zone, do not miss out on opportunities. We tend to sit and say, okay, somebody is coming to save me, somebody will tell me what to do. No, access every different platform. In time and again, for those who are employed, send your CV out there, contact employment agencies. In terms of business, those of us who are in business, start advertising yourself, start marketing your business, contact various people, in terms of how you can actually take your product to market. And also in terms of advancing your skills and academic knowledge. Like I'm actually a great example, because everything that I have, my parents paid for my education only up to matric. Everything that I have in terms of my degrees and whatever I'm going to have for all the small courses, I paid for myself. I paid for myself because, given what my mother told me, that once you have an education, nobody can ever take that away from you. And once you develop yourself, your skill set, your academic knowledge, you gain that respect from the industry, you gain that respect from people around you. So it's very, very important for you to actually advance your skills and academic knowledge. Does anybody have a question to ask? Erica, I think I saw you with a question there. Larissa, yes, self-empowerment is actually critical, because at the end of the day, the only person that is responsible and for your growth and development is yourself. The other people that actually come in to help you, it's an aid and assist situation, but you have to be okay. But you have to be responsible for your own growth and development. I'm taking questions, guys. If you have questions, is there anybody else got questions?
Sama, I've just got a thought, a bit of a thought and a question. You know, as you said, we've been discussing this and you know, women empowerment for decades, for ages. And, you know, we know about we should be mentoring and we should be coaching and sponsorship as well. What is it that we are, you know, that we're not getting the traction? Do you think it is the culture thing? Is it women ourselves where we are perhaps not supporting each other or believing in each other enough? And kind of how do we change that mindset to a certain extent? You know, it's just something that's always been, it always goes through my mind to say, you know, that proactivity, I think that you've been speaking about. We need to be proactive, yeah.
You know, to be quite honest, Jane, and you know, if I'm wrong, you know, somebody tell me that I'm wrong. But to be quite honest, the people that stand in our way is ourselves as women. We stand in our own way. We do not lift each other up as women. Instead, at some point, we tend to tear each other down as women. We do not fix each other's crowns as women. Very few of us, okay, we may want to assist, but then something then changes. Okay, so that is our downfall as women. And if we're not united as women, if we are not united as women, who will stand for us? So in as much as we've been having that conversation for such a long time, we're expecting results from a male-dominated society. We are crying for help, but at the end of the day, we ourselves as women are not united. We do not lift each other up. Would rather than collaborate with men. There's a tender out or there's something that needs to be done. Why not let other women join in that business idea? Because we do not want to lift each other, and that needs to change. You know, that needs to change in terms of us not lifting each other up as women.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point there, Samu, because we're so busy also doing, and we trying to get by and trying to perhaps advance in an organization on your own. So you're not doing the networking thing. I mean, we're not as good as networking as men are with their clubs and their golf and their things that they do. I don't know.
Yes. And as well in our defense, Jade, if you look at it, we don't have time to go for golf. We don't have time to do all those kind of things. So at the end of the day, we end up being an island, you know. We have to balance, like I say, you know, the competing demands of life, of work and family. Once I'm at home, I have to take care of my family. But we need to find a way around that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think
sorry, there's a question here from Kunda. How do we navigate women that are gatekeepers in the private sector? How do we navigate women that are gatekeepers in the private sector? Kunda, I'm not sure I understand your question in terms of women. Can you maybe just clarify on that question, Kunda? And I'll get back to you.
I think while she's doing that, Larissa's also got one here about, do you think we give up a little bit too soon in terms of maybe we need to develop more grit, perseverance, carry on? Do you think we give up too soon in certain things?
I think perhaps maybe we do, or maybe we lack it's not a matter of giving up too soon, really. I think we just lack the confidence, you know. You know what, Jane, Larissa, when you have been beaten up for so long, you know, when your confidence has been stripped for so long, you must remember that we have certain struggles as women, you know, that we don't even go through. We don't even tell people that we go through. Remember, we've got various kind of women. You would find a woman that is in who's married, who's successful, but when you go home, the woman is suffering all sorts of emotional abuse. You get a woman who's a single parent, okay? She may have a job. At the end of the day, that salary is not enough for her and her children. You have a woman that is unemployed or who's between jobs, a woman that really just wants to advance herself, but nothing is happening. No help is coming. Nobody else believes in you. So what is the next thing for you to do is to just get by. So I wouldn't say that we give up too soon. I would just say that we do not have enough confidence that is coming in from society. We only seem to be celebrated on Women's Month.
Exactly.
When Women's Month passes, then all is forgotten. So nothing happens to us. We go through all sorts of emotional exploitations, for example, and our worth is not really realized. So that is my opinion to that. Does that answer your question, Larissa?
I see
Okay,
we've got.
thank you. There's somebody here.
Yeah. So Erica said, I would like to. Can you see those, Samu, the questions?
Yes, Erica says, I would like to suggest or ask if you have ever thought of an idea, for example, all these women in this group, if interested, how about coming together and networking and starting something for ourselves, either putting funds together and starting a small project and also looking for funding and put together and run a successful business. That would be a great idea. Erica, I'll take you up on that. Probably just start a platform, where women can access. I'll take you up on that. I'll start an online platform, Jane.
Definitely.
I will start an online platform, maybe a Facebook page or so forth, for women, and then we can come together and see what to do. I do have mentoring. I do mentor young entrepreneurs as well, in terms of helping them start their businesses and so forth. Something that I do, just to make sure that we create opportunities for young entrepreneurs. There's also another question here. Kunda has come back. I mean, how do we work around women who don't want to give opportunities to other women in a male-dominated industry? Kunda, this is what I mentioned earlier, that us as women tend to stand in our own way. We do not lift each other up and we bring each other down. We need to change that mindset. It really has to be a paradigm shift. You lifting up another woman does not mean that your opportunities will be less, or you'll have less opportunities if you put another woman in a favorable position in terms of business and so forth. So really that needs to be something that comes from within, something that we also need to look at ourselves and change. So we're already in a male-dominated industry as it is, and if we can't look out for each other as women, then we have a big problem. A lot of organizations are in place, but nothing seems to come out of it. So it has to be a paradigm shift in terms of how we actually perceive ourselves as women. Okay. There's a question here that says, how have you dealt with intersectionality? Being women and being Black, what has made you hold on? From Somila. Wow, Somila. For me, I started going out into the world. I kid you not, I was 17 when I left home. I was 17. I was 19 when I started working. And I realized that if you do not have a thick skin, you got to have a thick skin, especially as a woman, and especially being a Black woman. You got to have a thick skin in terms of how you actually deal with men, because at the end of the day, by virtue of you being a woman, you are perceived to be of a weaker sex. Okay, so for me, I've had to develop a thick skin. I can stand toe to toe in business with any man. I can stand with them toe to toe. So if you do not have a thick skin, if you do not develop a thick skin, and also if you do not educate yourself, if you do not educate yourself in terms of actually, you need to know what you're talking about. You walk into a boardroom, you walk into a meeting, you're the only woman in that boardroom. You present facts. If your facts are not backed by evidence, nobody will listen to you. So at the end of the day, you need to keep yourself really informed, because they will then tear you apart and act as though there is nothing, you do not know what you're talking about. So this is how I've dealt with it. I've developed a thick skin, and I think in terms of my personality as well, I'm a strong person. So that actually helps as well. Thanks, Samila. Miriam says that okay, let's start with Romelia. Yes, I agree about the online platform as a networking forum for women. And then Karen says, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders? In terms of the next generation of female leaders, identify a mentor, somebody that you can identify with, somebody who will teach you the ropes of business. I just need to say that when you're in the classroom learning theory, it's very different from what you see in the business world. I learned a really good lesson when I left business school. What you see out there is quite different. So you need to familiarize yourself with strong women who are already in the business that will show you what, that will show you the ropes. Actually develop your skill, your practical skills in terms of business as well. But also, notwithstanding, you need to get an education. Education does not necessarily mean you being in the classroom. There's a lot of platforms where you can educate yourself, be a subject matter expert in terms of business, in terms of whatever it is that you want to venture in. Miriam says that my view is that we as women have an inferiority complex brought on by patriarchal society. I think women are far more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. That's very true, Miriam. That's very, very true. Amanda says, I agree fully that we have to develop a thick skin, but often women are seen as being aggressive, but we're actually being assertive. I would rather be perceived as, aggressive and stand my ground, and not be manipulated.
Yeah, it's difficult that, when that those kind of comments come to you, that, oh, you're aggressive and you're emotional or you're irrational, and because you're passionate about something. So I think also
Yes.
for us to have your own sense of self and to keep going back to that, what am I doing? Why am I doing? What is your
Yes.
reason for being from a personal, interpersonal, professional part? That then I think would help with the thick skin, because you're doing what you're doing for a reason, and then it doesn't matter what your critics say. You can manage that, because not everybody's gonna like you, and that's okay. As long as you can get buy-in where you need to get buy-in, and you keep your friends where your friends are, you've got enough friends, but it's the buy-in in terms of business.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. And as well as, like somebody said there that we need to, let me just look at that. I would then go back and say, self-development is very, very important. So self-development is very, very important, and also just supporting each other as women. You have the women that are vendors that are selling on the side of the streets, but we would rather go and buy vegetables from Pick and Pay, vegetables from Food Lovers and so forth, forgetting that that woman that is selling on the side of the road is also an entrepreneur. Why not support that woman? So we need to look at the issue of women empowerment holistically, not really just us that are sitting here in offices or that are running sort of businesses. There's a lot of informal businesses that are there, and those informal businesses are actually adding to the country's GDP more than the formal businesses. So as we leave this session today, I'll challenge every woman to say, let's network, let's lift each other as women, let's fix each other's crowns, and let's not forget who we are. Let's also remember that it is always us against them. Even if it's made in subtle ways, it is. So we need to be there for each other. We need to lift each other up. There's somebody that has said they absolutely agree with you. You have to do things for yourself and stay positive, and as generally as people can bring you down. Self-empowerment and self-belief. Thank you. That is very, very true.
That is true. I think so. And I think it is one of those things. You also do it day by day with your long-term strategy, and you build yourself up day by day, and lean on your network and your friends and acquaintances. I think, as you said before, Tommy, to ask for help. You know, we don't have to do everything by ourselves. We are superwoman, but you know, she also had people helping her. So I do like that thing to remember there are people who are there to help you.
Exactly.
And them, you know, it's a reciprocal kind of way of working, and the more you help others, I think the more we get back.
Exactly. That's what needs to happen. And you know, remember, when you look at the private sector, when you look at government, that is just, it's compliance issues. You know, we're just going to do the bare minimum to comply, to show shareholders, to show a society that, oh, we did this for women and we did that. At the end of the day, it all starts with you, it all ends with you as an individual. The platforms are there, access them. There are some organizations that just will not conform any longer. They will not put women in senior management positions, and it doesn't matter. It just goes unchallenged. But what is stopping you as a woman? I will always encourage people, become an entrepreneur. If you're a woman, become an entrepreneur. Yes, the road to being an entrepreneur is not an easy one. Believe me, I can tell you stories about being an entrepreneur. You know, there's times when you have a business idea, you invest in the business idea, it doesn't work, you have nothing left. You've got to start over again, you know. But like with practice comes perfection. The more you engage in working for yourself, you become in control of your time as well. If you're working a 6-to-5 job, it is also difficult to actually balance, you know, work and home life. It becomes very difficult. But if you are working for yourself, you're actually in charge of your own time. You're writing your own paycheck, and at the same time, you're actually in control of your own time. But not all of us can be. Not all of us can be entrepreneurs. That is a given. We understand that. But I would encourage that those who are not in informal, those who are not working or in informal employment, start looking at ideas of actually starting your own businesses. Turn your passion into a paycheck. You know, when I lost my store, because you know it was a franchise. You know, the franchise owner decided they're not going to continue. I had to think, what else am I going to do? And it was just by luck that I was asked to facilitate a workshop, the public safety, and it was actually communication executives. And I did very well. And oh wow, I'm actually good at this. So I began to do a series of workshops, and I ended up turning that passion into employment, which is my business today. You know, because so at the end of the day, you just need to develop yourself, find what it is that you're good at, and then just, you know, turn that passion into something that will pay you. Okay, there's Romelia says, thank you, Sam, for a fantastic presentation. I just want to add, look at your circle of influence, women that are already successful, and ask for help or follow success stories. That's very, very true. I've got a few women that I actually identify with, you know, actually a few women, you know, that I look at as my mentors. And I always say, I'm not good at everything. I don't know everything. Always remain teachable, always ask questions, especially from those women that have made it. I mean, there's women that I actually look up to who are far younger than me, but are very, very successful. So you must always ask questions, always look for insights, always ask, how did you get here? How can I get to where you are? So at the end of the day, there's that what you might call, there's that domino effect where if you teach the next person and the next person and so forth, then you end up having a series of women that are powerful, that are strong, and who are successful business people. And then Larissa says, I think we must start looking differently at the race against them, and rather start racing for a better you today compared to yesterday. Growth and development, continuous learning, creativity, new skills will take us far. That's very, very true, Larissa. That is actually very, very important, Larissa. Looking at COVID. COVID has changed a lot of things. The way we did things 5 months ago is different. Okay, I would have been having this conversation in a room full of people. I would be addressing people, but I'm now doing it over the internet. So a lot of things that we did before then have changed. So we need to adapt. Adapting means learning new skills. Okay, I'm in the business of skills development. My business relies entirely on teaching face-to-face, having workshops, having training sessions, but we can't do that anymore. So like I mentioned earlier, I had to learn new skills that will actually keep me in business. So that is very, very important. Okay, yes, thank you all, and I wish Sam and all of us here a way forward and success in all you do. Thank you, Erica. Yes.
Right. Samu, thank you so much. I think the insight that you've given us in the comments and from the participants have really shown, a way forward, as you said, to keep learning, to keep curious, to keep talking, to finding out, and then implementing. And I like the way that you say we must fix each other's crowns. I really like that. That resonates with me completely. And I think also, I mean, for us, COVID has been a complete change in the way we think, the way we do things. But I think maybe now's the time for us to be able to adapt and, as Praneshka says, pivot, and just keep on with our goals, what we want to do, even in this site. Maybe this isn't a time for us to be able to embrace it, and then to make sure that we keep moving forward, even though we have, in terms of the sustainability goals, gone backwards a little bit. Be aware of the domestic violence that has increased and take certain stands.
Exactly. And also what I would really like to add as a point of departure, I'm not sure if the conversation is ending soon, but as a point of departure is that we need to speak up as women. There's a lot of us that are in abusive relationships, a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of physical abuse that we're experiencing. We need to speak up and say, yes, I am being abused emotionally, I'm being abused physically, I need help. There is nothing embarrassing about speaking out and saying, help me. And if you are a woman, you know another woman that is being physically abused, that is suffering abuse, you need to speak up and tell somebody. You need to offer that person help, because sometimes we begin to love our chains, we begin to love our chains. We stay in those abusive relationships because we don't know any other way. We don't know any other way of living. But we need to get out. We need to speak up and get out. There's a lot of platforms, there's a lot of organizations, there's family, there's friends, that even if you decide to leave an abusive relationship, yes, it's going to be difficult, but then you need to start over. So we need to speak up as women. You cannot say, I'm going to stay in this relationship. At the end of the day, you lose your life. There's a lot of women that have lost their lives. If a man lays his hand on you once, leave. Do not give him another chance, leave. Because he's not going to change.
Yeah.
This is a month, a women's month. There's gender-based violence that is being spoken about. The conversation does not only end now, it has to continue. But if you are in an abusive relationship, pack your bags and go. He is never going to change.
Exactly.
If a woman is being abused that you know of, offer her help. Some people do not want you to say, okay, leave the relationship. They'll tell you that, oh, she's jealous or whatever. She wants me to leave my man. But no, rather leave while you're still alive than leave in a coffin.
Exactly.
There's a young lady, I would like to pay tribute to a young lady, a 19-year-old first-year medical student that was murdered by her ex-boyfriend 2 days ago because she left the relationship. So I would like to pay tribute to that young lady and all the other young ladies and women that have lost their lives at the hand of abusive men. I'd like to pay tribute to them today. And let's think about those and let's continue lifting each other up as women.
Thank you, Samu. I think that's a wonderful note.
I'm sorry for the network troubles earlier on.
No worries, no worries. That's the new reality. But we appreciate all of your time. Thank you for your tribute. I think we all feel we're with you. And, let's not just have Women's Month. I think we need to be having Women's Years and just keep on supporting each other.
Absolutely. And I will definitely be asking you for the attendees today, and I will set up a virtual platform. Those that are interested in actually pursuing business interests and so forth, and we can go there. Look, I do a lot. I help register companies, get you compliant and so forth. Also do accreditations for, if you want to get into the skills development sector. I've got a lot of knowledge there. Let's have that conversation, guys. Let's increase our earning capacity. Let's not only live from paycheck to paycheck. Let's push and go forward. I'd just like to read a couple of refugee. Thank you, Samu, Ramilia. Okay, excellent session. Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. Much appreciated. Eve, thank you. Thank you, Samu and Jane. Inspirational talk this morning. Jane, if we could go on 2 hours, if
we could. Easily.
Thank you so much, Kunda, my daughter. She's there. Thank you. Yeah, but yes, let's keep the conversation going. Looking forward to the next conversation. I'll be a part of that, definitely. Let's lift each other up and let's never stop trying.
Exactly.
There's one. There's Tabitha. She's my niece from the UK. Wow. As you mentioned, one of the biggest challenges facing a lot of women is that they also have families, spouses, and other responsibilities. These demands can pressure a woman to abandon either her business or family. I'd like your advice on asking for help and building networks that will enable us to support each other as women. Thank you, Tofi. Stabiso. Okay, thank you for lifting the spirits. That's Sajida.
That's wonderful.
Much appreciated, guys.
Everyone, really, we appreciate it, Samu. Thank you so much. And you have lifted everybody's spirits on this cold day in Johannesburg. So really, everyone have an awesome day, an awesome week, month, and let's keep on working together. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.